The powers that be didn't help them at all. My name's Isobel and I was a student during lockdown.
Cheers. Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Isobel, I'm 20 years old, I'm from Cornwall and I graduated during the global pandemic.
So where were you a student and what were you studying?
I was a student at Newcastle University and I studied animal management and conservation.
So Newcastle had the first recorded case of COVID-19 in the UK. What was the atmosphere like at uni?
When we first found out about COVID and it was really in the news, everyone was like, nah, but it'll be all right. And then we got the first case, and I think everyone went 3 different ways. They panicked, or they thought, oh, it's a bit scary, but I don't really think it'll affect me, or people literally just pretended it wasn't happening. Newcastle seemed to be quite relaxed at first. People were still going out. I was still going on nights out, still going to work, going into uni, and I don't think really much for a while. Not much changed, and then got closer and closer to March, and you'd go out to shops and people would be wearing masks, and it was dead. I remember thinking, everyone's at uni at the moment, everyone's getting ready for final exams, and you could walk down the street and you wouldn't see anyone. I've never seen it like that before.
How did that make you feel?
I remember walking with my housemates being this is the apocalypse, it's so weird. It was just scary. There was no traffic on the road. I remember it just being what the hell is going on?
Do you feel that your university has helped you through the pandemic in any way, shape or form?
My initial reaction to that question was no, but I feel like you have to cut them some slack because no one knows how to deal with this. You can't prepare for a global pandemic. At first, we had absolutely no guidance from anyone. Is this final year? Do we do our assignment? Are we doing our practical work? How are we going to finish final year? And then it got to the stage where we were in full lockdown and sort of action had to be taken. Uni started to step up a little bit. They started saying, if you can't do your work, that's okay, just let us know. You don't have to provide any evidence, we'll just give you an extension on your work. I communicated a lot more with my uni, I felt when I was at home, because I started struggling quite a lot, and they were so helpful. Everyone's sort of humane side came out. They started being so understanding, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're going through this. It was sort of like talking to a friend, because no one knew what was going on and everyone was having such different experiences of lockdown. But yeah, I think it wasn't necessarily uni's fault, and I know this is nationwide, well, worldwide. They just had no guidance from anyone higher up. The powers that be didn't help them at all. We didn't know what was going on, but neither did our uni.
So when lockdown kicked in, what happened to you?
I was actually still in Newcastle the day that lockdown was announced, and obviously I'm from Cornwall, so that's quite a massive journey to make. I was I don't know how to get home. I can't go on a train, they're 7-8 hours long. Flight obviously is out of the question. Bus, which is sometimes get 15 hours, and I was I'm not risking that either. And my parents, my dad was at risk and my mum was still working a lot, so there was no way they could come and get me. So luckily I managed to hire a car, pack up my house and drive down to Cornwall, where I went into lockdown with my family. I travelled down on the 25th of March, and I remember I was driving down. I got loads of people texting me, ringing me. They've literally just come out, just on the coronavirus briefing, and they've just said that students should stay where they are. So I was halfway between Newcastle and Cornwall, and I was well, luckily I left literally the day that they made the announcement, so I did get home, but I don't know what I would have done if it had been any later.
So obviously you got home, went into lockdown with your family, but that was in March. Uni doesn't finish until June, July time. What happened work-wise?
I had 6 assignments due around May. I managed to get a couple done, then sort of my lockdown took a turn for the worse, if you will, and I had to take up the offer of an extension. I did have a few assignments that were practical based, and obviously there was no way that we could complete practical assignments, so we just sort of had to make it up. I did at first find it difficult to focus and sit down and put my mind to it, but you're in a completely different setting to what you're used to, and like your family have just got you back, so you're not thinking about uni work, if I'm honest. I did struggle, but I managed to graduate with a first, so something must have gone right. I did have to adapt quite a lot my learning style, or my working style. I had to move into the shed in the garden just to try and get a bit of a little bubble for me to study in. It was difficult, but I think every student had to go through it.
Congratulations on graduating.
Thank you.
Did you have any sort of celebration for it, or what did you do?
I did. I had a little celebration, and we just drank loads of cocktails and ate good food, sang a bit. It was really nice.
Was it like a nice break from the norm, like from being stuck?
Yeah, it was felt like a special occasion. I wasn't really bothered about going to my graduation anyway, so it was quite nice in that that's probably what I would have wanted to do even if we weren't in lockdown.
So locking down with your family, how was that for you?
At first it was really enjoyable, it was really nice to be back. I missed Cornwall, the weather was amazing, and it was nice to be somewhere with the outdoors and a garden and stuff like that, because my flat in Newcastle, I couldn't even open my window. I think it's sort of you're not used to being stuck. All this family had to were just shoved in this house together and just expected to get along and not leave. It wasn't easy, but it was an experience. You'll never get that time back with your family either. I'm never gonna have, how long was it? July, so it was 4 months. Excuse me, I'm trying to do an interview. I'll never get 4 months off just to spend with my family.
So did you face any personal obstacles?
I think I was quite lucky in that I had a nice home environment, and I wasn't worried about money. I was on furlough, things like that. I do have a pre-existing health condition, so being at risk during the global pandemic was not fun, and I did end up having a short stay in hospital.
What was it like being in hospital?
It was really difficult because you can't have that support system around you, as in you can't see any family, you can't really chat to the nurses or other patients. It's quite a lonely time, but also you're sort of scared about your health anyway, but then on top of that you're at risk of catching COVID in the hospital.
Yeah.
It was really scary.
How do you feel that COVID-19 affected your life?
I feel like because of COVID, I've had sort of a chunk of my rite of passage into an adult life just ripped away, and I was at uni living with my mates, and suddenly it was just gone. We didn't really say goodbye, and I think that was really difficult to come to terms with, especially when you're at uni, you've got all this independence and you're sort of living a totally different life to when you're at home, and then you come back and you're just totally relying on everyone else, and it was a big shock to the system, I think.
How do you feel about the lockdown restrictions beginning to ease?
I think because during lockdown my health has deteriorated. Coming out of it again, I'm quite scared because I just have more to lose now. Seeing people just really that's totally fine, you've got nothing to worry about. I'm so pleased for you that you don't need to stress about that side of it, but there are so many vulnerable people out there, and it's up to everyone else to keep them safe. And I think it's scary that it's clear that the government have sort of completely disregarded any disabled person, elderly, anyone that could possibly suffer quite seriously from this.
I think you're right, it is scary.
But I mean, that's not out of the norm, is it?
Were there any positive elements to lockdown for you? I know you had a pretty rough time, but were there any positive elements?
I feel like it was a real chance for me to sort of self-reflect quite a bit. It gave me a chance to come to terms with my condition, or even like mental health, like it really just gave you a sort of time to sit back, think, what do I need coming out of lockdown?
Like, what do you value?
Yeah, and like, what am I going to change about the way I do things, or the way I see myself, or the way I see other people? Like, it's a really good time for reflection. I don't need to live such a fast-paced life because it's not worth it. Before this, I was always like prioritising the wrong thing, prioritising work, prioritising being successful. That's not what I value. I value quality time with my friends, family, and like looking after myself.
Is there anything that you would tell future generations that you learnt during lockdown?
I think that you're allowed to put yourself first. Don't do anything if it doesn't make you happy. Like, you can make plans for the future, but if you're going to do something, just do it now, because you have no idea what's going to happen. I know it's not over yet, but I feel like COVID sort of brought out the best or worst of everyone, and I realised I've surrounded myself with some really lovely people.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Wear your mask. Wear your mask. Cheers. Thanks. Come again.
Thank you so much for watching the first episode of Letters from Lockdown. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'd like to thank Isobel for being my first interviewee and for being so open and honest with her experiences. I have a ton more to come, so stay tuned and see you soon.
You could plan a pretty picnic, but you can't predict the weather. Miss Jackson.